This meeting, I hope, will address some of your issues with regards to education, and I believe you will find it interesting and the questions answered, I hope. We have a lot to cover, so let us get on with it. Our President, Mr. Eswick, will now start this meeting with a prayer.
Good evening, all. Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Dear Lord, we are here in this place this evening to conduct a constituency meeting. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thoughts, and speech. Pour down your blessings on every member of this gathering and also those who are on their way. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities and our ministers present this evening so that our affairs may be a success. Thank you for being our source of guidance. All this we pray in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
This evening, we will hear from Senator the Honorable Chad Blackman, Minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, the Honorable K. McConney, Minister of Education, Technological and Vocational Training, and the Parliamentary Representative, Mr. Ryan Straughn, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, all accomplished in their respective fields. So we will start the ball rolling and ask the Minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Mr. Chad Blackman, to address us.
All right. Ooh. Good evening, comrades. Let's try this one more time. Good evening, comrades. Lovely. It is very good to... No, I'm good. No, I can stand up. If I want to sit, then maybe, but no, I'm good for now. Thank you. It is very good to be once again amongst the family of the Labour Party, and in particular to be in the constituency of Christchurch East Central, under the stewardship of your MP, Minister Ryan Straughn, and also to be joined by my colleague, K. McConney, who is also, as you know, the MP for St. Philip West. And why this afternoon I'm happy to be here, and I'll go through a number of different things, and I know they also have their own presentations to make. But what I want to talk about this evening is really the issue of, one, representation, and two, transformation. Two simple things, but two very important and powerful things that we as a country have been undertaking, but we have to continue to do so. You may recall when we started this journey in 2018, or a bit before, because of course the Labour Party did not start it only on the day that we won the election in 2018, but we started this journey to rescue Barbados from a time and a regime when under the Democratic Labour Party, this country was going through significant challenges. Significant. You couldn't get your, what do you call it? You couldn't get your, well, that's true, garbage is collected, but not just the garbage, but you couldn't get your tax returns on time. You couldn't get your university tuition paid for. Because why? The Democratic Labour Party, through the mismanagement that they were overseeing as an administration, caused every single thing that they touched to go into disarray. And then the Labour Party came to office through the wisdom of the people of Barbados in 2018. Next month will make, 6 years, I think it is. And this team, anchored here by our Prime Minister Mia Mottley, God bless her, and rescued this country and brought it to a place where we now are enjoying a level of growth, a level of prosperity. Yes, there's still challenges because we're not out of the woods entirely as yet, but you would have seen a complete difference between then and now. And why am I talking about the issue of transformation? Because one, this government set out as a journey that transformation must not only be in the context of saving Barbados from the Dems, but in order to put Barbados on a strong footing, two things has to happen. We have to stabilize the economy, we have to transform the economy, and in order for Barbados to be competitive in the future, And by future, I don't mean just in the next 5 years, but I'm talking within the next 15, 20, 30 years. This administration took a firm decision that it has to transform the economy and the country to be able to position itself to be a competitive jurisdiction and economy within the next 20 to 30 years. And therefore, the two members of Parliament and members of Cabinet that you're seeing to my left, Vauxhall Christchurch. And Vauxhall has the fortune, like many other constituencies, to be one neighborhood, but has two constituencies. You have Christchurch West Central on the southern side, and you have Christchurch. Of that community, I can tell you firsthand, notwithstanding that there's an imaginary line called the boundary, that what Minister Straughn, MP Straughn, has been doing and is doing on your behalf on the East Central side of Christchurch. And I can tell you, because why? Prior to when Minister Straughn, MP Straughn was there, you had a situation where the Democratic Labour Party was in office in terms of being the MP at the time. I think it was Ronald Jones, of course. And the level of representation was one of a lot of grandstanding, a lot of talk, a lot of gaff. But if you wanted to find your MP, you couldn't. And it wasn't to say that he was undertaking transformation in education to ensure that the country could be uplifted. It wasn't to say that he was ensuring that he talked to the Minister of Finance to ensure that his ministry, which was education, could pay the UE fees for students. He wasn't doing that. God knows what he was doing. But you have a man in Ryan Straughn, and I can tell you, I came back to Barbados in January. And Ryan and I are in the same overall ministry. I'm the economic affairs side of things. He's the finance, he's the purse man. But that's a fact. Ryan is the purse man. Ryan is the man that keeps all of us in the whole country in order. You understand? So he's on that side of the ministry. But I can tell you, since I have come back to Barbados in January, and given now that we are in the same ministry, I can see on a close basis what he is doing for the country. And Ryan, I want to publicly salute you for the hard work, not that you're now doing, that you've been doing from even before 2018, because you remember, he was offering a lot of free advice to the Dems through his public utterances before we came to office, but they won't listen. They won't listen. Well, that's true, they couldn't understand. But prior to coming to office in 2018, Ryan, when you were in the Barbados Economic, I think, Society, he was walking the country through the challenges we had, and secondly, what are the alternatives if only they would listen. But since coming to office, he has been with the Prime Minister, in my view, part and parcel of what is rescue, or what was Rescue Barbados. And you remember we endured 23 downgrades under the Dems. 23. And since coming to office, Minister Straughn, at the helm, of course, with Prime Minister Motley, we've not only not had any downgrades, but we've had upgrades. The economy was in a situation where we had 68 cents of every dollar that this country earned. Imagine that, 68 cents of every dollar that this Barbados earned had to service our debt. 68 cents. In other words, let's do the reverse. If my math serves me correctly, I'm not Minister Straughn, but I can work some numbers this evening. So we had a situation where 32 cents of every dollar had to go to develop everything that we needed to do. Pay for tuition at UE, Polytechnic, BCC, fix roads, pay for the hospital, pay for the polyclinics, buy school books, you name it. 32 cents. Because why? Our economy was so choked because of what the Democratic Labour Party did. Only 68 cents of every dollar had to service debt. You now have a situation because of what Minister Straughn was able to do in 6 years. In 6 years. Where now we have 70 cents of every dollar to be able to do all of what we're doing in this country. Ryan, I salute you. I salute you. And it is not easy, and I can say this publicly, and both Ryan and Kay would attest to this. People might think it happened because of a magic wand. No. We have a leader, Prime Minister Morley, who is, in my view, one of the hardest working leaders anywhere in the world. When I was ambassador in Geneva, and since I've come back, please can confirm, at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, Chad, Ryan, Kay, I want this look at, what are your thoughts, so and so. Because why? It is not an 84 thing, it is not a 5-year thing. For Prime Minister Morley, leadership is about ensuring that the 290,000 of us have an opportunity to grow and to prosper. It is about ensuring that the confidence that people gave to us in 2018 and in 2022 is not taken for granted. And this is what leadership is all about. But I also want to talk about transformation, and I know Kay will go into it in depth, but I also want to give her her due this evening too. Because why? I can tell you in my immediate previous role, coming from the ILO, the skills that will be required for this country to not just prosper, but continue to prosper and to grow our economic pie and to ensure that we can have our roads fixed, transform the economy, will require significant skills in the future. And in order to do that, which entity or which sector is at the core of ensuring that our skills can be world-class and competitive? It is education. It is education. And I see what Kay is doing as significant. Why? Because she has the fortune not only of being the Minister of Education, but in her previous ministerial role, she also was in MIST. And there's no prosperous economy today that can transform itself without the context of technology and innovation and science. That's a fact. So Kay is now, in my view, in a perfect position, wearing the MIST side or the previous MIST side of her thought process, and now the education side of an entrance. You cannot have only a certain set of our society, quote unquote, benefiting from what was an elite British colonial system, and where the world requires us to have skills in music, drama, arts, theater, robotics, to be competitive, but our educational system is not catering for those gifts that God has blessed them with. And Kay and her team have set out on a critical mission to ensure that we can transform ourselves. And I really want to salute her. But also on the domestic front, local front, Kay, I don't know how you do it. Managing such a large national portfolio and transformation, but yet on the local front, she's still doing what she's meant to do in St. Philip West. You have to share the secret with me as a future aspiring politician in that regard. And that's the point I'm making. This team that we have here is on a mission of transformation. We've passed the level of, or the need for stability and stabilization coming from 2018. But that stability that we are enjoying, I want to say this clearly. It is like a hurricane. You can prepare all your life and build infrastructure. You can do different things. But if put into the wrong hands, what you took years or decades to do, put into the wrong hands can go within minutes. And I want to like it. That's why they said, stability has returned to Barbados. Prosperity is there, there's growth. So once you locate here, they can see the benefit. But how does that benefit you? It also means increased opportunities for economic activity for everyone. So we also now have to prepare our people locally through programs and training. As the economy grows, how do we ensure that across the constituencies in this country, our people can benefit and tap into it? We have the Cricket World Cup coming up in June. How are you positioning yourself to benefit? How are you ensuring that as people move through Barbados and the world is going to have their eyes on us, you are helping to tell that Barbadian story as well? We are a country of greatness, and our generations and generations to come must be on the front line of greatness. And we have to now inject that further into our DNA. So, in my simple wrap-up, I want to say to you, comrades, let us continue to tell the message of the Labour Party. Let us continue to arm ourselves with facts. Whilst we watch those in George Street continue to self-implode, leave them. Don't get into their debates, because they know what they're doing best. But let us continue to support Prime Minister Morley and her vision. Here in East Central, continue to give Minister Straughn your utmost support. And as I can tell you, he's working hard. And right now, I honestly don't know how you manage so well to be able to steer our national economy and still have to, all the time to ensure that you give to the people of East Central in the way that you do. It is testament, and he has a family, huh? It's not to say he doesn't, he has a family. But notwithstanding that, he finds the time to do those two national responsibilities that he has. And it is therefore a testament to the character that he is. And similarly with Kay. And these are the people that you've elected, and they are working on your behalf. So we must continue forward ever, backward never. And as I always say, with God as our leader, Prime Minister Morley as our Prime Minister, and with Ryan and Kay as some of our MPs, the only way is forward. So I want to wish you a fantastic evening and a fantastic week, and may God bless the Barbados Labour Party. And it is good to see you, all of you here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Blackman. We will now call on the Minister of Education, the Honorable K. McConney, to address you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see most of the seats in this place filled. It is good to be here with my Barbados Labour Party family and to say thank you for coming out this evening. Not just, I don't think you came out to hear me. I think you came out to really and truly stay connected with each other in this particular constituency and to hear what your Member of Parliament has to say and to ensure that we are able to continue from strength to strength as a Labour Party. And as I speak, I really want to acknowledge the chairman of the Barbados Labour Party, Mr. Farley, who has just walked in this room. When the family comes together, the head of the family is always good to see him here with all of us. Now, this evening, I was asked to speak on what is happening with regards to education transformation. And as I get started, I want you to recognize that education transformation isn't this thing out there that we are doing at the ministry. I want you to look in your own household. I want you to look into your extended family. I want you to look at the children at your church, your synagogue, your mosque, wherever you worship. I want you just to look around you. And I want you to think of the children who have not been properly served by this education system. You know of any? You know of any? And I want you to think also of those who have been served. You know of any? What I am saying is that this system that has brought many of us in this room to where we are now, it has given us our jobs, it gave us our house, it helped us send to school our children. This education system gave us the foundation for everything that we have. And we should value that. Because what we do not want to do is to destroy what we already have. What we want to do is build on what we already have. And building on it means that there are some things that may have to be a little bit different. Because as you have acknowledged, there are children who have been served and there are some who have not. And you would hear that the central theme under which we are doing education transformation is a bright future for every child. What we are trying to say is that in our system, this Barbados educational system, The day should come when you should say you know no one who's not being served by this system. You should be able to say, everyone I know has been served. So your answers must be different on the other side of this transformation down the road. And many people have said, but I don't really understand all of what it is that you're trying to do, that this government is seeking to do. And I am going to give you the opportunity to ask some questions today, because I can speak from my perspective, but you will ask from yours. And to see if I can also answer some of the questions. But before I get in there, what we really want to do is to ensure that there is a place in our school system for every child, no matter whether they're gifted in terms of what we in Barbados will call the real bright, or whether there are students who learn in different ways. Many of you will tell me, you know, remember I said, look in your household, your neighborhood, your church, your synagogue, your mosque. Just look around you. I bet you will tell me there are children who will tell you, I am not so good at the book work, but when it comes to using my hands, they excel. There are those who will tell you, if you sit down and you read it to me and I see it on the blackboard, I might get some of it. But put it in front of me and tell me to pick it down and put it back together, and I can do that. That means is that there are students who learn differently. Some of us learn book learning, and we're good at it. Some of us learn, we can discuss it and we can work with each other, and we are good at that. And then there are others where you have to get involved. The educators call them visual learners, auditory learners, and kinesthetic learners. But all that means is that children learn differently. But you will know that we have an education system that throughout our lives have only celebrated those who do the book learning well. This system, if we are to make a place and a space in it so that all students, no matter how they learn, are able to thrive and to rise to the highest level of their potential and find a place in the world for themselves, in this real world, it means we have to change the way in which we teach. It can't all be about the books. And if we change the way in which we teach, we have to help build the capacity of the teachers to be able to teach differently. And so, because we have to build a system that meets the needs of all, not only do we have to look at how we teach, we must look at what we teach. That's when we talk about curriculum. And I am breaking down the pieces very bit by bit, because many people have said we talk up here and they can't really understand it. You with me still? We talk about curriculum. Curriculum is, the subjects and what they learn within those subjects and how we deliver those to the children. The world that you lived in the 1980s, is it the same as the world we live in 2023? No. So can we still prepare the children for a world that is very different than the world we came out of? And still expect that if we prepare them the way we prepared them back then, with the same subjects we prepared them back then, that they'll be able to live in the real world now and in the future? So part of what we need to do in order to help prepare them for now and the future is to adjust some of the subjects that they learn so that they're relevant to the real world they're living in. We had some discussions with children, and that was children within our school system, and one of the biggest complaints they had is that what they are learning is not all relevant to the real world that they're moving into. Doesn't mean nothing is relevant. It means too much of it was not. And they gave us some suggestions for the kinds of things they would like to see included in their curriculum. And we have heard them. And at this time, we are in the process of trying to see how best we can include them without stuffing the curriculum so much that it becomes too much. So it means if you put in some things, you have to take out some things. And when we talk about transformation as it relates to curriculum, it is being able to look at what is being taught, how it's being taught, what do we need to keep in, what we need to take out, and what else we need to make sure that we have added. And so part of curriculum reform, we will still have our core subjects, your math and your English and your language and your science and many of those things that will remain. And of course, digital literacy will have to be in there too, because now we are living in a world powered by technology. So the core subjects that you know, those will not change. We may expand them to include other things that are relevant. But what we are also doing with the core subjects is, in addition to the core subjects, we are seeking now to provide what they call options. People call them electives, but there are other options that they can choose in addition to the core subjects, which everyone would have to do. We want to make sure that they have other options that will help expose them to some of the very emerging industries and skills that they will need for the world to come. Do you know that the World Economic Forum told us that for those students who entered school in 2016, 6 out of 10 of them will be in jobs that never existed before? Now, when you recognize that your children and your grandchildren and your nieces and your nephews and your godchildren and those you support in your neighborhood, 6 out of 10, count 10 that you know and pick any 6. 6 out of them will be in jobs that do not currently exist. It means the way in which we prepare the child can't be only by memorization and rote, because memorizing things and knowing them by heart will not help you in something you've never seen before. It will serve you for things of the past, but it will not prepare you to be able to think critically, to look at something and be able to assess it and evaluate it and then be able to make a decision as to what you do. It will not help you to solve problems. Just because you've memorized it does not mean you now know when you're faced with something new, how to confront it. And so critical thinking and problem solving have to be part of what we infuse in the way we teach, as we also adjust the curriculum. Because in the end game for curriculum is to prepare them for the real world. And their world now is not our world back then. You will know that infrastructure, many of you have looked at the schools around you, including this one here, Milton Lynch. And you see that there needs to be some improvements in the schools. But understand that the classroom you were in that we had in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, you notice that classrooms look pretty much the same way they did back then? But now the world is teaching in a very different way. They're digital. You need to be able to live stream some classes. You need to be able to do classes where everybody are in the same room and the class is going on at the same time. And you also need a situation where people are anywhere else and can log into a class at any one location. You recognize now many of you have gone into the work world after school. Have you ever gone to a job where the only person involved in the job is yourself? You work in teams. You work with other people. And so that whole project-based learning where collaboration is required has to be part of how we set up the classrooms for children to be able to work more together on projects rather than you all alone by yourself on your table with your little pencil and paper, because that's not the real world. And this is not the Ministry of Education saying so. These are the students that are telling us. More project-based learning, more collaboration. So classrooms cannot be set up like this for collaboration. You collaborate in groups. So how we set up classrooms, how we create the technology and the digital infrastructure of the schools, that has to change. And also how the schools look. Many of you will have heard that the Ministry of Education just put out a call to all architects in Barbados to come up with a model for what they think a 21st century school should look like for special needs, for nursery or pre-primary, for primary school, and for secondary school. There are 4 different categories. And we have said, Barbadian architects, I want you to think of the school of the future, the skills of the future, how we need to work in the future, and come up with what the new school should look like, what it should feel like. It has also to be climate resilient. We need to be making sure that we're doing water conservation, we're collecting water and reusing water at every school. We need to make sure that they're energy efficient and we're using modern energy sources and renewable energy sources. We need to make sure that we're using the indoor and outdoor space effectively in a country that has such a salubrious climate. We need to make sure that we have set classrooms up where collaboration is a real thing on an ongoing basis. So there are a number of different briefs we have given for the schools. Students with special needs is a very important part of the transformation that we're proposing. And they need special spaces. They need special spaces for their devices. They even need special devices to start with. They need special spaces where they can psychologically and mentally manage their mental state throughout school, which means there are special rooms that are sensory, different types of ways in which they need to be stimulated. And so the spaces for students with special needs have to be customized for special needs students of different types. But what are the studies telling us? They're telling us that to the extent you can include, and that's where the inclusiveness piece comes in, include students with special needs within the regular everyday classrooms and schools to the extent that we can do. Because those students get better outcomes from their learning experience when they're integrated as part of the mainstream. Now, we recognize too that there are those students who their exceptionalities are at such a level that they will not be able to fit within the school system. And so we must make sure that spaces and places are there also to support their learning. Why? Because we need to build a system that serves everyone. done to expand the scope of the current Education Act, and there are some things that will no longer apply. We have, in fact, set up a subcommittee with responsibility for looking at this legislation. And in this financial year, this government has also ensured that we have made provision for someone to come in, a consultant to come in, to work with us in revamping, and with that subcommittee to fully revamp that Education Act for a 21st century educational environment. So thank you for that question. If there are no other questions, I will hand over the microphone to the chairperson of proceedings, and thank you all for your time. I'm going to be here after, so if you have any further questions that you wish to ask directly, please feel free to do so. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Minister McConney. Now call on our parliamentary representative, the Honorable Mr. Straughn, to address the gathering.
Good evening, comrades. First of all, let me apologize for the loss of sound, and especially for those who are online who were letting us know that they were not hearing anything. I think we can all attest, at least for those who are here, that there was nothing untoward that was not to be broadcast for the avoidance of any doubt, because we are clearly operating in a political environment where mischief often can go awry. So I just want that to be made very, very, very clear. But I really want to thank both Chad and Kay for setting, I think, the scene in relation to where we were and where we need to go. Because it is particularly important to appreciate that Barbados's economic life is 100% determined by our education system, 100%. And we now have to ensure that our children, our young adults, appreciate that it is no longer sufficient to go to school and learn, as my grandmother tell me to go to school and learn, and all of you, your grandparents tell you to go to school and learn and get a job. 33 and a third. And so forth. In today's world, it is how we apply any knowledge that we acquire that is going to make the difference in people's lives. Because as Kay rightly said, if in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years' time, the majority of our students in school will be in jobs that do not exist today, then it means that we must be, well, I think first and foremost, I hope that with the introduction of the coding and robotics that we did in the middle of COVID, we issued all the students with laptops and the like, that we appreciate that in this world of technology, we now must ensure that every single student, and this is no longer a case of saying it's up to the software engineer, or the IT person, or this person, every single student leaving school, going into any profession, must be able to apply those basic things within coding, robotics, and the like, in order to keep pace with whatever is happening in each profession, because things have changed. Things have changed. And therefore, Barbados, if we are going to keep pace, then we must arm our students with the right tools, the right skills, and give them carte blanche, for the most part, to explore. And I'm going to give you an example. My microwave and my washing machine right now they brought down. They brought down. So we call a guy, because as the purse man, I ain't going to buy a new washing machine nor microwave. I call the guy. Now, a mature gentleman, and he is forever trying to find young people to train to come and take over what is a fairly lucrative business, because the guy turns up. I mean, I don't know how to do it. The man turn up, open the thing, 2 minutes, the thing working again. Now, if I could do it, because I don't deal with electricity or none of them things, because you got, you remember Louis the Lightning Bud, you got to play it safe around electricity. But I made that point to say that we have areas within our economy, and mind you, this gentleman, he went to Polytechnic all those years ago. He learned, but he's kept pace with what's happening. He can tell you about all the parts that's happening globally. He can tell you which part is this, what works, what doesn't work. But what he isn't supported with is an army of young people who can make sure that they can deliver those types of services for you. So here's what I would like to see in school. That we have a situation, and at home too, where you encourage your children or your grandchildren to pick down the TV and put it back up. Yes, Gene. And put it back up. Take down the laptop and put it back up. Because if we do not encourage our children to be brave, they will never, ever, 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 ever be confident, fully confident, to go in the world and apply that knowledge, that working technical knowledge that is critical to help transform Barbados. And I see the looks on all your faces when they tell you to let the children pick down these things. You may not you may not have a purse man, but you see, listen, you see that little TV there, so that on that desk there, the big behind TV, there. Our children should be picking them down, understanding how they work, what makes them work. Because if we're going to build a resilient Barbados, things are going to break down. Just here this evening, the sound bay, I don't know anything about sound engineering, but the fellas do something, and the sound come back. The reality is, this is the type of thinking and skill set that we need to encourage all of our children to be able to do today. Not in 10 years, not in 15 years, but it means that in order for us to be comfortable with that, then we have to step back, and where there are training courses, I know that the Ministry of Education has been doing a wonderful job with the construction gateway, the online training in relation to cybersecurity and AI, and it will expand further. But we must ensure that all of our young people, and not so young, even Eugene, you could pick down some things too. You too. Everybody. Because as Kay said, and I'm being very serious, as Kay said, everybody learns differently. But there's some very basic things that if we get comfortable with, then when somebody comes by you and tell you that it can cost you $2,000 to do this thing, you will have a fairly good idea as to what is involved in something before you go and shell out some money for something because you may be taken advantage of, because you don't have a basic understanding as to what is required to get something done. And
I'm speaking in this way because oftentimes we are all taken advantage of in some form or fashion because we do not know. And we can't all be experts in everything, but there's some basic things that we have, I think, as a country, we have to address. We've started the Financial Literacy Bureau as part of helping people to understand how to manage budgets and make different decisions, which is part and parcel of what we're doing with the introduction in school as well, because, you know, when we were at school, nobody didn't tell me nothing about how to manage money. They didn't tell me nothing about how the schools are financed. They didn't tell me nothing about taxation. They didn't tell me anything at all in school. But they tell you to go to school, learn, get a job. But they didn't give you any of the other tools to help you that when you do get that job, the decisions that you can make that will help improve the lives of your family, your neighborhood, and the like. And that is also part of the transformation that needs to happen super fast, because guess what? The world is moving on. You remember there was a time when we would say Barbados is, and we still say Barbados is the gem of the Caribbean, and we pat ourselves on our back and be proud of that. But the rest of the Caribbean catching up. And in certain elements, they've surpassed Barbados. So we've got to ask ourselves, are we too arrogant, too confident, too complacent to recognize when something isn't going as it should? Make the course correction as we did in 2018. And if we made that course of correction in 2018, then trust me, we have to now make sure that in every single area, and I think some of it, I hope the CBC microphone was able to catch some of the exchange, because I think it's important to recognize that what was raised here this afternoon are some very serious issues, because the future of the country cannot be determined by a few people who don't have the interests of either the students, the system, in order to ensure that in 50 years from now, that Barbados is genuinely at the cutting edge. And none of us in here, well, some of us may be here in 50 years, some of us. I plan to be, but some of us. But the reality is, the whole point of all of us trying to exist and look after our families is to ensure there's continuity. And therefore, we must invest in the social development. And part of that social development means undoing the things that have not served us well and dispensing of them and acknowledging that there will be some turnover, some churn. Some people can be uncomfortable. But I would rather be uncomfortable knowing that we're heading in the right direction than completely comfortable and knowing that we're going back, and the country getting worse. And I think we all experienced that certainly between 2013 and 2018. Because on February 23rd, the day after the election, every man Jack in Barbados knew. Every man Jack in Barbados knew it was a mistake. And I think it is you, Chad, that said, elections will come and elections will go. And therefore, we must make sure that the policy coherence that is required to push the country forward, to transform this country, that you elect people who are serious people. Serious people. And yes, we can lime and we can do what we got to do, because that's part of being a Bajan. You got to do them things. But at the core, we have to be serious about what we are doing in this country. And you cannot be any more serious than ensuring that your young people who are critical to help take care of the family, then you want to know that you have been able to contribute to an ecosystem, an environment for which they don't feel as if somehow something wrong with them. That they can walk in a room and be confident that I'm the best carpenter in Wharton, I'm the best carpenter in Christchurch, I'm the best carpenter in Barbados, I'm the best carpenter in the Caribbean, I am the best carpenter in the Western Hemisphere, I'm the best carpenter in the world. And that is very much possible because we have examples of excellence. And therefore, whether you're a carpenter, a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, an electrician, whatever it is the mental fitness, if you like. Because if people feel less than, Mm-hmm.
Because they have to be equipped or feel powerful enough to instill in their wards, their church students, that every vocation is
Yes.
worthwhile. So that if the child, I don't even know if they do technical in school, I'm not sure. They used to do woodwork, I'm not
They do.
But my thing is, if you find that you have a child who gravitates towards woodwork, you don't want to discourage the child and make him feel less than the child who's excelling at science. Encourage him.
Thank you.
And many of our people who went years ago in the 70s, 60s, who immigrated, were those people who didn't do well to go on to secondary school, who left elementary standards
Yep.
and went to the technical institute, went to the house craft center,
Uh-huh.
and those kind of things. And these are the people who now are making money and sending back to Barbados and all that. But teachers of that era, and still this one, people have made some of them feel that they were inferior, they were nothing. And so we have to ensure that the teachers who are working with these students from early instill in them the importance of
Absolutely. And that is why when we launched the Covenant of Hope in 2016, the whole idea of a new national consciousness, and this is not something that's esoteric, that's pie in the sky. That is at the essence as to how we create a new Barbados. And let me tell you, if the common entrance exam was in singing and art, a lot of we would be in trouble. You would agree, right? A lot of we would be in trouble. I couldn't get that bottle draw for nothing at school. I could do a little singing, a little bit, but but the point I'm making is you have to cater, as Kay said, we got 16 years to figure out what does make somebody tick. 16 years. And rather than try to get everybody through the same door, at the same time, they got windows, they got another door there, they got the open up. Oh, yes, I know. So you can see that this area has some dividers. So if we were all in this space, we would be cramped, trying to get through the same door. You open up the divide, all of a sudden you got more space, more opportunity for people to explore. And therefore, we now have to make sure that we make it real for people. Part of it is the physical infrastructure, and thanks to the Skills for the Future program, Milton Lynch will receive a facelift this year because part of the IDB project, the same project that you get cursed so bad for, regrettably, will bring some relief to Milton Lynch, as well as 9 other primary schools this year, as part of how we are able now to help transform and deliver for the boys across these Christchurch areas. And we are doing it in a sequential manner because, unlike 50 years ago, we have 68 primary schools now. But as you know, those 68 primary schools weren't built all in the same year. They were built over a period of time. And therefore, you have to renew, renovate, refurbish, re-engineer, re-everything. Yeah? But we got to do it quickly. And we can't do it quickly if every minute we got to stop and start, and everybody arguing about, I ain't like this or I ain't like that. You got a plan, and you execute the plan. If something go wrong, you just figure out why it went wrong, make sure it don't happen again, and you move. That is what Barbados now has to adopt, an attitude that we can do things, and that we will do things, and we will do it quickly, because time, you know they say time is money. And as a purse man, I can tell you, time is money. Time is money, because 20 years ago, when we really should have been ramping up the investment in edutech, when the Prime Minister was then Minister of Education, when we should have been ramping up that investment. When COVID hit 4 years ago, if we had ramped up the original investment from before, when COVID hit, as far as delivery of education is concerned, we would have been smooth sailing, because it meant that all of our schools would have had the time to put in the infrastructure, yeah? And it would not have cost us as much as we had to do as an emergency intervention, to do. But we would have developed the capacity and the learning and work out all the kinks along the way, so that when that massive disruption took place, the country would have been better prepared. So I'm making that point to say we need to make sure that the policy continues for the benefit of all Barbadians. And therefore, this is not an exercise in political drama. These are people's lives that we're talking about here when the day comes. And therefore, our jobs as politicians really is cut through all of the noise, make the decisions, find the resources, and finding the resources is often tricky. It's often tricky, because if people don't pay the taxes on time, or they're running and ducking from the tax man, but they want the roads fixed, which getting fixed, and every road can't get fixed at the same time. So again, it is what it is. The reality is, we have to understand that each of us as citizens, that we have a responsibility to uphold for each other. And therefore, the civics going back in school is important, because for I don't know however long, I remember when I was at school, they used to have the civics as a youngster. I'm still a youngster, but as a youngster, we had civics in school. But I think with the reintroduction of civics, the financial literacy, as well as the other training courses, the digital interventions that are being put in place, I am confident that we can ensure that even though the number of births in the last 10 years, pretty much about half the births as when I was at school, because when I was at school, they probably had almost close to 5,000 people sitting common entrance back in my day. Now you're at 30-something, but the number of births in the last few years just about 2,200. So even, yeah, I'm coming to that. Even at this school, Milton Lynch, we have 3 or 4 classrooms that are not necessarily being utilized fully when the day comes, because the enrollment has gone on to mimic the enrollment in relation, the demographics in relation to births, the decline in births over the years. And therefore, we now have to make sure, and I think as Kay said, how we deliver the education now, because for a number of years I've heard people say we need smaller class sizes. But if you got less children to teach, yeah, the class sizes got to be smaller. And therefore, how we hold teachers to account for the fact that there are smaller class sizes, and the supervisory management in school. And the reality is that a teacher, and this is not, I did a little teaching back in the day. I taught at Hillby Turner's Hall and Springer and Louis Lynch. So and university, but I love teaching. But it is an awesome responsibility. So if when you go into that class and you have done less than your best, then all you're doing is creating opportunities for deviance, because when people feel as if they don't have a choice or any options, when you come out of school and nobody looking at you because you ain't get enough 60s, you ain't even get none, you can't find a training program to get onto, it's more difficult to get a piece of work because you're going to struggle. And therefore, anything that we have not done to ensure that we close any deficits as a teacher, we are contributing to what's happening in society over time. And therefore, I'm not saying it's your responsibility solely, because you got parents, you got other institutions that are just as responsible. But if we have people as a captive audience, 9 to 3, sometimes 4:30, depending on whether you do any extracurricular activities, for 12 years, then we have a responsibility to make sure that we make those 12 years count, so that everybody who comes through the system, as Kay said, would know that there's a place in this world for them, because I want to be clear, there's not every job that Barbados can provide for Barbadians. There's not every job that Barbados can provide for Barbadians. But what we are doing is to ensure that you could go any part of the world and do that work and do it well. But we must be prepared to venture out. And that confidence to venture out starts with how we see ourselves within our communities, how we see ourselves in school, and to know that we have figured out a mechanism that allows us to be able to tap in to that talent, and we encourage it. And therefore, I believe that the transformation agenda cannot be achieved unless we deal significantly with what is happening within the education system. Right now, well, it's not right now, but before we came into office, the country felt as if it was on autopilot. It felt. But if you know what autopilot means, if you understand what autopilot means that all your systems working, and you've set a course, and somebody checking that those systems are working to ensure that you remain on course at the appropriate speed that you want to set to make sure the direction you're going in is what it is. So what people confuse as autopilot was really a lackadaisical approach, because as long as some people felt as if they were getting through, they felt as if the rest of us were getting through. And then when the systems start to break down, the sewage in the street, the garbage and collect, the buses catching fire, when the day comes, you remember all of the madness that was going on. People supplying goods and services to the government can't get paid. All of these things. Roads, mash up. Because nobody was paying attention. Nobody was paying attention. Now you have a situation where the government is paying attention, but the enormity of the task is such that the attention that is required means that the resources that we have are stretched. So therefore, you got to prioritize, as you do in your house. Because, I remember growing up, my grandmother, I want something, and she would look at me straight in the eye and tell me, Ramboy, no, you're going to get it next week, you can get it next month, or you can get it in 6 months, or when they catch my hand, as she would say, or you ain't gonna get it at all. But she had to make those decisions within the confines of the budget. And therefore, as we seek to continue to bring this country back from, and I'm talking about 2018 now, I'm talking about COVID and the ash and everything, because a lot has happened in this country that still continues to have people in a little spot of bother. And we acknowledge that and we know it, and therefore that is equally why it is important that we support the education transformation agenda, Because resilience does not just mean making sure that your house got a secure roof, or that the windows secure, or the shelters fit for housing people. Resilience means that people will have the capacity that if something happened, that you got a little breathing space, a little buffer to make sure that 6 months, 9 months, that it ain't gonna be the end of the world if something happens, death in the family, or unexpectedly, these things happen as part of life. But in order for us to be able to build a resilient country, it means that our families and our individuals must have that capacity to make decisions that are good decisions. And sometimes you got to take a little risk because you don't have full information. And there's nothing wrong with taking risks, but you take risks appropriate to what you can accommodate. And therefore, those are the kinds of things that we need to make sure that we have the ecosystems in place that allows us to be able to do that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the work of the Barbados Labour Party. It has always been the work of the Barbados Labour Party. And we don't shy away from that. We get up every day and we come work to make sure that all of you and your family, your neighbors, the rest of the country, that not just that you feel proud about what we're doing, and in everything that you can agree with, then everything that I can agree with, because even in your family, you've got to make decisions. You make decisions on the basis of priorities and timing for what you can do. So it's not that, as people will say, the government up there making decisions and then talking to people, because I don't know who we ain't talked to in this country, or who ain't talked to we in this country. But there's this narrative out there that the government making these decisions in a vacuum. Now, I heard somebody say something the other day that we doing the roads for the tourists for the World Cup. Now, if the tourists could take out the road and kite on the airplane with them, I would understand if you tell me that I doing the roads for tourists. But you see what has happened, right? When you can't figure out how to get something done, and people are doing it, then you start to pick at everything. You understand? And I'm saying to you, comrades, that the government will continue to do its work. And when I ask the people of Christchurch East Central to put me to work on their behalf and the government to work on their behalf, I meant it. And this government is working. I believe the people of this country recognize work and good work when they see it. But we cannot allow anything to derail us from what is really the true agenda. It is transformation. And transformation to be able to ensure that our people can feel that sense of total pride, total confidence in whatever you do. Because Barbados has always been known to be a leader. And where we go now, Barbados' name is synonymous with leadership. So whether it is at church, whether it's at school, whether it's in the club, whatever it is, you have to be a leader. Because if we are leading in every space in this country, if we are leading in our families, and being a leader sometimes means you get outnumbered and you listen. Being a leader sometimes means you have to be very firm and say to people like how my grandmother said to me, Rand, this is what is happening in here. And therefore, in your household or in your community, we all must be leaders to make sure that we say this is what's going to happen about here. And therefore, it takes courage to do, because as a leader, you can get cursed. You can get cursed. You can get cursed. On the exec, you can get cursed. As an MP, you can get cursed, but that's part of leadership. Because if you're not doing anything, nobody can curse. Well, you can get cursed if you ain't doing anything, but if you're not doing anything worthwhile, you understand, then there ain't nothing to curse about, because the other side, if there's a side, and I only say the other side because That's the decent thing to say. We're in a school, so you have to say the other side. The other side really have no substance to offer this country. And therefore, as members of the Barbados Party, as members of this government, I said, I will promote the work of this party. I will promote the work of this government because I believe it is good work. And therefore, as we continue to deliver this work, I want to urge all of you this evening of the importance to understand that in order for us to transform, we need leadership at every level. Good leadership, honest leadership, to ensure that we hold each other to account. And that you come and tell me, you come and tell Kay, you come and tell Chad, and anybody else, fellas, you need to push harder because we can see the benefits in terms of what is happening, and we want to see more of that. And therefore, these are the things that we need to make sure that we can fast track because time, I can tell you, time is money. And if the money running out, it can feel like a long time before anything happened. And I think we experienced that feeling under the last Democratic Party government where nothing was happening because, as Chad said, they simply were not able to deliver on anything that mattered to ordinary people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Straughn. We are approaching the end of our meeting. I want to make two reminders. One is the tax clinic on April the 27th, between 2 and 6 at the constituency office. And the next one is to remind you that our annual picnic is upon us. On the 29th of April, we want to see everybody upon the East Coast, everybody. So please come and join us and have a good time. Yes, please, there will be transportation, so just come out and do your thing. We also would like to thank Minister McConney and Minister Blackman for coming, for giving us of your time this afternoon. And we appreciated very much the effort. So on behalf of the constituency group, we would like to present you with these tokens of appreciation. And thank you so much for coming, and hope you come again the next time we ask. No call on the President of the Executive, Mr. Peter Eswick, to give us the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone, once again. I always like to put the ladies first, so let me first thank Minister Kay. Minister Kay, for a wonderful presentation. I would always remember the first time I invited her to a meeting here. She was so excited, and she did deliver. She delivered once again at this meeting. Thank you, Minister Kay. Can we have that applause again, please? Please, please, please. Thank you. Thank you. Minister Shad, a transformative man, a man who delivers on the spot. A government man. He believes in government, and we are so excited to have him speaking to us once again. Thank you, Minister Shad. Not putting our minister and our representative last, but thank you, Minister Straughn. Once again, as always, you always delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our meeting this evening has come to an end. I want to thank you again for coming out, so you can join us at the back for some refreshments. Thank you.